So with a console like the Nintendo Switch, there is a ton of different games you can choose from, and it can sometimes be hard to figure out which ones you should really devote your time to actually playing to completion. And in today's video, I want to hop through my top 5 best recent Nintendo Switch releases, and recent is subjective because one of these games was out in very late 2022, but every other game on the list will be a 2023 release, and some games that I definitely feel like every Switch owner should take a little bit of time out of their day to devote to completing if you haven't already. And we need to go over exactly what those games are in no particular order right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon if you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. And as I mentioned, guys, today we are discussing 5 different games that I believe every Nintendo Switch gamer should pick up and play, some of which you may already have access to because a couple different games on today's list will actually be from Nintendo Switch Online, and some choice picks that I think everybody needs to have experienced from start to finish. And again, these games will be in no particular order, but they are all ones I truly believe are worth Nintendo fans checking out, as we have a plethora of different type of games now out on Switch. It's literally one of the best console generations ever, and with that, we won't wait any longer. Let's dive right in with game number 1, which is none other than Metroid Prime Remastered. This game was in the rumor mill speculation talk for far too long, but it was finally revealed at the February Nintendo Direct in 2023, and it shadow dropped the day of the event. I don't think anybody saw that coming. This is a remaster done right. This is what you want to see from the GameCube era, which is iconic and arguably had some of the best Nintendo published games ever, and Metroid Prime still to this day sits amongst the top rated Metacritic games of all time, period, and it sits at a 96 on the remastered edition on the Switch. It is insane. It deserves it, because what fans maybe don't know about what a Metroid game has to offer is it has a lot of the puzzle and unlock exploration, almost similar to that of a Legend of Zelda game, but then it offers some really unique fast action combat in a first person perspective. But don't think first person shooter, because the way that you can lock onto enemies with a touch of a button really doesn't make it play like a traditional first person shooter at all. They've modernized the controls with Metroid Prime Remaster, which was a really big upgrade, because back in the GameCube you had to stop moving and press R to look and aim around, and now you can play on a Pro controller, which feels fantastic. And if you were someone who grew up with the Wii release of the Metroid Prime games, then you can actually enable motion controls as well. This literally checked all the boxes in terms of doing better graphics, better visuals, lighting effects, you name it. It runs at a solid 60 frames per second. It is a quality remaster through and through. And I think that anybody who gives it a chance gets immersed in the world and the lore and the map system and the progression and the unlockables as you go. The different type of beams that Samus will unlock, the missile expansion packs, the energy tanks, you name it. There's a lot of secrets to be found when progressing through, and also some major story points. And I think that anybody who has their eye at least somewhat on the upcoming Metroid Prime 4, that we don't know when it will be out, you definitely have to start with where the series on the Prime end started, which is Metroid Prime 1, and we will have to wait and see whether or not we will get Prime 2 or 3 brought to the Switch. But that is number 1 on today's list, and I can't recommend it to Switch gamers enough. Number 2 is none other than Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and this is another port or remaster, as this one was actually originally out on the Wii. Kirby has seen a ton of love in recent years from Nintendo, but this one is deserving of a conversation because it really is a ton of fun. The level layout, it's a traditional side-scrolling Kirby game. I won't oversell it other than that, but I do think it's a lot of fun. It's one of the better Kirby titles out there, and especially if you have some friends or family that you are looking to play through a game with, I think that this one needs to belong in your list somewhere at some point in time. Maybe we will see it go on sale at some point in the future, because I can see that $60 retail price being a hang up to some, but they did also add in new content, and it just looks better than ever. This is one of those Wii games that maybe didn't even do as well on the Wii as it should have, and when given the opportunity to be played on Switch, I think it makes a ton more sense. And I can't personally get enough of games that allow you to traverse through their entirety with friends and family. Don't go into this expecting the biggest challenge in the world of Nintendo Switch games, but if you want something that's fun, relaxing, has platforming, has unique abilities and items and combinations that you can create with being Kirby, and if you kind of loosely know what to expect in a Kirby game, I do think that this one is absolutely worth adding into your library today. Now, the next game on our list is one you have to go back and look at the history books of Nintendo to fully appreciate, because it truly did revolutionize gaming, and I've actually been getting more into looking into Nintendo's history recently, with one of their big Nintendo of America presidents being a big point of interest to see some of the behind the scenes conversation, and that's where today's video sponsor comes into the conversation. Huge thank you to Audible for sponsoring today's video. Making time to sit down and read through a book can be very hard to do, especially if you have a busy schedule, but Audible makes it so much easier to experience any book you want at any time. You can download it as an app on your phone or listen on your computer or tablet whenever or wherever you want. Audible offers an incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre, all in one single app. You can choose from a ton of different categories like bestsellers, computers and technology, motivation, business, and more. Audible even offers thousands of podcasts with popular favorites and exclusive new series. Lately, I've been enjoying Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aimé, former president and chief operating officer of Nintendo of America. It's really cool to hear an in-depth explanation of Reggie's journey from a regular kid growing up in the Bronx and climbing the ranks within Nintendo and leading them through both successful and challenging times. And as an Audible member like myself, you'll be able to choose one title from them per month to keep as yours forever. The best part is new Audible members can try Audible for free for 30 days. If you go to audible.com/Sunbro or text Sunbro to 500-500. Please help support the brands that support me. Huge thanks once again to Audible for sponsoring today's video. So GoldenEye is a game that revolutionized what first-person shooters even are in 3D period, and it definitely did it for consoles. This was a game that many were concerned we would never even see a true re-release of, because there was so much red tape with the rights holders and who owned the rights to release this game. It was MGM, Nintendo, and Microsoft, and many thought we would never see this game hit the light of day again, because Microsoft even tried to re-release it back on Xbox Live Arcade in the 360 era, and it got completely scrapped and shut down just due to the fact that these parties couldn't come together. Well, fast forward to where we are at today with Nintendo Switch Online and a better working relationship between Nintendo and Microsoft, and we finally have this game playable in a modern resolution on modern television screens with an HDMI port, and that is such a win. Now, the Nintendo Switch version, while it does have some of its own hiccups that the Xbox version does not have, such as the control scheme, there are ways around that, as you can remap your controller to be a more traditional two-stick layout when it comes to controlling a modern first-person shooter. That is doable in GoldenEye, and there are plenty of guides out there. And if you do that step, you have the best of both worlds with this version, because not only did Nintendo add in traditional widescreen support so you can see the entirety of the image in a 16:9 aspect ratio, but you also have online play exclusively available on this version. And when you talk about GoldenEye, while the campaign is extremely fun, extremely immersing, and so many hours of enjoyment can be had by progressing through that, the online multiplayer, or just even local multiplayer if you can, is definitely where this game shines through. And you have one of the best soundtracks of all time period. You have crazy game modes that can be enabled, like the man with the golden gun, where you're hunting for the golden gun, and once you get it, you're a real threat because you can take anybody out in one shot. Knife only fights are a ton of fun. Like, you name it, you can do it in GoldenEye multiplayer, and Nintendo has secured this game with the online play functionality intact. And again, this is not one you can purchase as a one-off to own in your library, but rather a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack membership is required to experience the game. But if you don't already have the access to play GoldenEye on your Nintendo Switch today, you really need to do so at some point in time, in my personal opinion, because it revolutionized gaming and the history books for a reason. And I definitely hope that everybody in the modern day can experience what this classic shooter really achieved and accomplished in gamers' minds. And I'm just glad it is back in a big way in the modern day on Nintendo Switch. Now, next up is the one game on today's list that was released in late 2022, and that is none other than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. These are some incredibly successful games on the Nintendo Switch, but for good reason. There is definitely some gripes around the performance and some bugs and glitches that have yet to really be patched and addressed, but I will tell you, if you can look past those small details, you have the first truly open world Pokemon experience available to you on your Switch console, and it is so much fun. You have different objectives and different paths and different stories you can progress at any order you want. Now, how Game Freak chose to do open world is that there are certain areas with different level recommendations, not requirements, but you can find yourself going to a higher level area first, where you might just get stomped for going there, or you might push through and then you might mow through the next lower level area that you go through. But open world really does fit the Pokemon universe, arguably as good as open world can even fit a gaming franchise. And the way that they let you traverse these lands with your legendary Pokemon from very early game is super enjoyable, and you have that upgrade and progression path where you are finding the new abilities that your legendaries can unfold, where you can fly through the air, you can swim in water, you can climb up the side of mountains. So you constantly feel like you're progressing, you're constantly building out your team, leveling them up, and trying to complete your Pokedex, and there is so much content in this game. You can easily spend 60 to 80 hours just on your initial playthrough, not to even mention trying to go through and catch all of the Pokemon and the exact team that you want to build out. And maybe if you want to get into shiny hunting, that's another can of worms that could open up hundreds of hours of more gameplay. But in addition to that, we know to expect 2 different DLC packs for these games, and as the content continues to expand on them, I definitely think it becomes more and more worth it for Nintendo Switch gamers to have these games in their library. And there's even an interesting leak and rumor that suggests that by time DLC 2 pops up, that we might even have some kind of next-gen performance patch for a true successor to the Nintendo Switch that we know and love today. But Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is one that I think every Switch owner needs in their collection. So don't wait any longer to experience the first ever open world Pokemon game through and through if you are able to do so. Now, the last game on today's list is one that you will also need to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member to experience, but I am so glad we have it easily playable on our portable or dockable consoles, and that is none other than The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. This game is a true masterpiece of a 2D Zelda experience. I would argue that it even needs a Link's of Awakening style remaster treatment one day, but I am glad it is back here today and easily playable on our Switch consoles. This is one that has an incredible story. It is actually the story right after Skyward Sword in the timeline, and it has a lot of implications for the origins of the Legend of Zelda series. It's actually the story of how Link gets his hat. And one thing you might forget about Game Boy Advance games is just how immersive the stories of some of the games really are, and I would put the story of this game at a top-notch experience compared to any Zelda title for that, not to mention all of the different dungeons and puzzles and enemies are top notch. You have the R button usable as a roll button, which was a really nice addition compared to previous handheld Zelda games at that point in time, being Oracle of Ages and Seasons and Link's Awakening before it. So the gameplay feels nice and crisp. The shrink down ability just fits a Zelda game so seamlessly, and Eslo, your cap, who's your companion that talks to you throughout, adds some nice comedy throughout your adventure. Vadi, which is a very interesting enemy in the game, is a perfect fit. I really do rank this amongst the top of 2D Zelda experiences, and that is saying something considering that A Link to the Past is also in that category. So this is one that, while it was added into Nintendo Switch Online and you could just easily overlook it, I can't recommend Zelda fans specifically, or even if you're somebody newer to the Zelda series, especially if you came in from Breath of the Wild, of course, the most successful selling Zelda game of all time, go back and play this timeless classic. I believe that Zelda fans of old and new will enjoy this equally and thoroughly enjoy all of the puzzles, all of the dungeons, all of the boss fights, various different gameplay mechanics, and an incredible story and music throughout. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What are your top 5 personal picks for more recent Nintendo Switch game releases? I definitely had some honorable mentions. Play Metroid Fusion if you haven't already. Also play Metroid Samus Returns on the Game Boy. Like, that addition to NSO with the Game Boy family of systems this year was absolutely a huge upgrade. But if you had to just pick a couple games that you would want to share to play through on your Switch that were recently released within the last 4 to 6 months, let's say, what would those be? And are there any on my list today that you agree with? And are there any that you think that I forgot that absolutely need to be added onto a top 5 list? And bonus question, out of the top 5 games we discussed, which one would you rank at number 1 for you personally? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Huge thank you once again to Audible for sponsoring today's video. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.